Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast. Wednesday night, the 17th of September. We're actually getting rain, Trevor. It's like the first time in a while. We need it. Big weekend ahead. Ryder Cup, Iowa City Elks versus Oskaloosa Elks, plus or minus a few others. But overall, that's kind of the core of it. Should be fun. Hopefully the weather stays good. It's kind of the next couple of days. We need the rain. As long as it doesn't come down, 5 inches an hour, it will surely help. But looking forward to it. We do want to touch. We can start here. It's been a somber week here for many people around the Oskaloosa community, especially our core group of friends here, Elks members, and then just, kind of core group of friends. We had a couple young ladies from William Penn, pass away from a car accident, including our friend Ryan Anderson's daughter, Sydney. Played sports at North Mahaska. They live in Grinnell. Just graduated last year's freshman at William Penn. The other girl was, I believe, a freshman at William Penn as well, with two other people from William Penn that I don't know their status. I know they were hurt and taken to the hospital and everything. But just a terrible deal. I'm not the best of friends with Ryan, but we've went on golf trips together, and you've been with us, Trevor. With some of our really good friends here that are from here, Brett Foster, one of his best friends, and it just stinks. Anybody that young to lose their life, it just stinks, and there's no other word for it. And we feel for everybody, and we're thinking about everybody affected by that, not just the Anderson family, but the other families involved as well.
Yeah, thoughts with all of them. That's just way too soon for any young person or people to go. And yeah, very sad for Ryan and his family. Again, thoughts, with all those Southeast Iowa, Oskaloosa area, North Mahaska. And then, of course, the passing of Tommy Gillespie, Dave Whitfer, also Elks members, kind of in the same week, it feels like. So, yeah, kind of just a rough time for Oski and the surrounding areas.
Yeah, with Tommy, I haven't known Tommy forever and ever, but, you always see him at the Elks. Always a good time, always great to talk to. Dave Whitfer, he's actually from pretty close to where I'm from, back home. I didn't know him then. He's obviously a lot older than I am, but he was a teacher there at Eddyville Blakesburg when I was a first-year teacher there, and, he was one of the people that got me to become a member of the Elks, played a lot of golf with him, sit up there on the corner of the Elks in his spot. And he's one that you could talk sports with and have a great conversation. And he was the go-to person for a lot of the different games and, the baseball pools, the basketball stuff, the football playoff pool, just all that stuff. It just stinks. Both of them have had some health issues, but you were hopefully they get through that, or at least, make them a little bit better, and hopefully it was helping. But unfortunately, there does come a time for all of us. And, just think about all the people, their families, friends, and everybody around here in Oskaloosa that thought a lot about them and cared about them.
Yeah, anytime you walked in the Elks, you knew Tommy was going to be sitting at the round table after he got finished with his round of golf, and then Dave would be up in his spot. I know he got me to join a lot of those pools when I lived back in Oski. The 13 pool for baseball. I wasn't a big baseball guy, but I got in that a couple years, and occasionally you'd walk in and he'd just randomly hand you an envelope with cash in it, and he did a great job of running all those fun pools up there. So yeah, it's going to be a lot different feeling walking in there from now on without those two there.
Yeah, it just and the one thing, and I think we've talked about this a little bit on here, is we're definitely getting older. There's just more and more people that and you've known for a long time, and some of it, I've been in Southeast Iowa now more than 20 years. So people you've known, and we talked about it this summer, and Ottumwa that kind of had this, where 2 or 3 people that I knew were all, affected by different things And, this is really home. I've lived here longer here than anywhere else. I lived 18 years in Adair where I grew up. Then I went to college, and then I moved to Eddyville and Oski, and I've been to Eldon. I mean, I've moved around a little bit here, Pella, but Southeast Iowa was the longest place I've ever called home, and kind of Oskaloosa and the Eddyville area. And, it's home now, and you meet and have relationships, and that's what's great about life. And, the golf circle, the teaching circle, and then just the other people around that make life worth living.
Yeah, the golf community and the teacher community kind of forms as one, it feels like, especially there in Oski and Southeast Iowa. So like I said, it's just really a rough time for a lot of folks in the area right now. So just really feel bad for everybody involved in, with those three different situations. So thoughts are with all of them.
Yep. Now we will transition here to, what we talk about here on Morgan You Asked For podcast, which is sports, which this time is football. We're going to start with college. Do want to start with the record-breaking win, 206 for Kirk Ferentz, passing Woody Hayes, Ohio State's legendary quarterback or head coach. Most wins in Big Ten history. There, one awesome, great legend. I hope Matt Campbell stays 27 years and can start breaking some of these type records and having, potentially a statue in front, which Kirk Ferentz, I hope they do it sooner rather than later. Give people their flowers while they're still here, is kind of touching back to what we were just talking about. You never know. Give them their flowers while they're here. Just great testament to the University of Iowa. It didn't start real smooth, and there's been a couple hiccups along the way, sticking with Kirk Ferentz, and then for Kirk Ferentz sticking with Iowa. It doesn't happen as much as it used to, but coaches leave. Universities just get rid of people quicker. We've already seen 2 Power 4 coaches get fired this year, not even 3 games in or less than 4 games in, depending on who it is. And this is a fair question that I've heard posed on several podcasts and shows that I listen to. Will this record ever be broken? It's a fair question, and everybody's like, well, Ryan Day will do it. He's averaging 8-9 wins, a year in the Big Ten. And that's true. If he stays at Ohio State for 25 years, he will break it. That's not the question. It's just there were questions last year, especially right after he lost to Michigan, whether Ryan Day should be fired. And he ended up winning the national championship. I mean, that's the pressure he has. And he's at the situation now where Kirk Ferentz was for years and years. Does he want to stay there? I mean, that's a really good college job, but does he have NFL aspirations? If he has them and he wants to, he will be able to take a head coaching job in the NFL. He will get it offered if he wants it. If he shows interest in teams, he will get an offer if he wants, or to any other job in America. To say he wants a different challenge, it looks to me like Florida is going to be up real soon. That would be, that's one of the best jobs in the country. They've got many national championships. If he just wants a different challenge, is that something he wants to do? And sometimes you just want to leave a little bit too soon than too late.
Yeah, it's a fair question if it'll ever be broke. I don't know if it ever will. The longevity is really tough in sports nowadays with the media and the pressure that a lot of universities and NFL too for professional sports that put on these coaches. So a lot of times fan bases aren't really don't have a lot of patience for guys when they go into a little bit of a slump. So yeah, I don't know if the record will ever be broke. Obviously, Kirk Ferentz, it started out a little bit slow, and then he turned the program around kind of, I think he's got 8 or 9 10-win seasons. I think 21 or 22 bowl game appearances, however many 100-plus players in the NFL. So it's been a hell of a run for Kirk Ferentz. And I don't know how much longer he's going to coach. Every year could be his last type of deal. I don't know if he's going to try to make it an even 30 years because I think this is year 27 now. Is that correct?
And 99 was his first season.
For 26. Okay. So, yeah, I don't know if the record will ever be broke, even for Ryan Day. If he has a 5 or 6 year slump without maybe reaching a national title game and maybe goes 0-5 versus Michigan or 1-4 type of deal, 10 years down the road, do they maybe look to replace him? Because we know how Ohio State fans are. They don't have a lot of patience there. Like I said, I've got some Ohio State fans that I'm coworkers with, and they love winning the national title, but they're not completely satisfied with last year because they lost to Michigan.
Yeah, his standard isn't bowl games and, maybe going to a lower bowl game once every 5 years. Their standard is the playoffs every year and truly compete for a national championship every year. It's not about winning the Big Ten for them. And you said this a few times. It's beat Michigan and get to the playoff, and probably in that order.
Yeah, he's got to be Michigan. That's something he has to get done here. You would think this year is going to be a good chance for him.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, I got some coworkers that they're very happy they won the national title. Obviously, Iowa State fans would be really ecstatic if either one of those schools was to win the Natty. We wouldn't really we wouldn't care about the Cyhawk game that much if you won the national championship. But at Ohio State, that's a little bit different story. So, yeah, as far as Kirk's record goes, and again, he's not done, so he's going to keep adding wins to this. However many wins they get this year, and let's say he coaches 2 more years, he could get 20 plus more wins tacked on top of that where it's at right now.
Yeah, and he said many times he doesn't have any hobbies. His hobby is football. So it's truly just when he wants to be done. And we've talked, unless the bottom completely falls out, which as long as he is there, I really don't see that happening. I'm not saying they're going to win 10 games every year, but I don't see a 2-10 or 3-8, 3-11 season coming from them. Their seal or their basement is maybe 6-6. I mean, I really believe that. Unless, and I always, caveat injuries, if Gronowski gets hurt and Hank Brown gets hurt and all of a sudden you're on your third quarterback, well, that, just like Utah last year, that's what happened to them. And you look at so far this year, they're right back to, I think they're going to compete and be right there at the end of the Big 12. Last year, they were on their 4th, 5th quarterback, true freshman. You just weren't ready for that.
Yeah, if Iowa goes down to a third stringer, I mean, I don't know if it's going to make a lot of a difference for the offense. As long as you can hand the ball off to the running backs, I mean, you don't have to do much else than that. But no, it's been a hell of a run for Kirk. So good for him on getting that record. And there was a nice tribute after the game. All the players standing behind him. They had a good interview there on the field. And I've seen a lot of different tributes, videos, former players coming out and congratulating them. So, yeah, it's been a hell of a run. And you don't see that very often in sports where a coach lasts as many years as he has.
It's just so unlikely now. I do think Iowa State has the guy, if someone's going to do it, that's relatively younger. Essentially, he's my age. He's 45, 46 years old for Matt Campbell. And he said that he is, kind of looked up to Kirk Ferentz and, Bill Snyder, kind of that type of person. And he's had chances to leave. And Kirk Ferentz had chances to leave. Bill Snyder had chances to leave. And he didn't. Money's not the number one thing for him. If it was, he would have been gone a long time ago. Where he lives is important. I know it's kind of a touchy subject here in Iowa is if Ohio's in the Midwest. But, when you think of the Midwest, when the people from the United States say the Midwest, Ohio is part of it. And he's from Ohio. He, has that same mentality, kind of. It's different than East Coast people, West Coast people, or people from the South. It's just different.
Yeah, Campbell seems like he wants to stay at Iowa State a long time. So given his age and the track record that we've seen the past few years, he's got a long ways to go, but he's on the right track for now. So yeah, for Iowa, it was a nice win on Saturday. Speaking of that game specifically, not a whole lot to take from it. It's a team you should roll, and that's basically what happened. We'll see what happens with the offense. So once they get into Big Ten play, Gronowski does look a little bit better than the past few quarterbacks we've had. How much better, it's tough to say until we get into Big Ten play. But the receivers and tight ends are still an issue. It'd be nice to bring back DJK, McNutt, and Hawkinson to have those guys on the team and see what the full potential would be. But yeah, Iowa's got Rutgers on Friday night. I think they'll get the win there. Do you have any thoughts on that game? It's a Friday night game. I think they played Friday night last year too.
I believe so. It is, and Iowa, I believe, has never lost to Rutgers. I believe I read that or heard that. I do not, if you want to fact check me, you can. I definitely could be wrong. Travis and Ross on the rush this morning or yesterday morning, I can't remember which one it was talking how this is really a must win for both programs. If Iowa loses this game, you're going to start hearing more and more about, is it time for Kirk Ferentz to move on and hang it up? Because, if you lose to Rutgers, then you bring into play Indiana's really good. You're going to lose there. Oregon's really, really, really good. You're going to lose there. Penn State, you're going to lose. Then you're bringing in, maybe you could lose to Wisconsin. Maybe you could lose to Minnesota. You could lose to Nebraska. Now we're talking that 4 or 5 win season that we're talking about that could bring Kirk Ferentz to think it and maybe resign, or the bottom of the program really does start to happen. But if you beat Rutgers, now maybe you can pick off one of those big three at home, because they're all at home, which is a big thing. And then, we can beat Wisconsin. We can beat Minnesota. We can beat Nebraska. So there's 4 more wins. So now you got there's 7 wins. You get 1, there's 8. There's your 8-4 season. We had some injuries. Our quarterback, again, is not what we thought he was. But it's Kirk Ferentz. It's 8 wins. Maybe we'll get better next year, get a better quarterback. Maybe Hank Brown is the guy. We go back next year and win 10 games. It's just, and that just is the psyche of winning or losing this particular game. And then on the vice versa, Rutgers is feeling the same way. I believe they're 3-0. They need to win some games. Schiano has not been as good in Rutgers 2.0 as he would like, as he was the first time. Now, the first time he was there, they were not in the Big Ten. They were still in the Big East, and he would go win 10 games. Now, they were still BCS, I believe Miami and Virginia Tech. Those schools were still in the Big East at that time when he was there the first time. And that's becoming more and more of a thing where coaches are going back to their previous school that they have left. Rich Rod at West Virginia, Scott Frost at UCF, just some names like that. And he's been there. He got there in 2020, so he needs to turn that corner as well and turn Rutgers back into what it was when he was there the first time.
Yeah, it's a must win, especially those of us that bet Iowa over 7.5 wins. This is a crucial one. So going to need to get the win there. Like to see Weegan get the ball more on offense. He's a great returner, which is awesome for Iowa. But I'd like to see him get 4 or 5 touches a game from now on. A couple in the passing game, maybe a quick screen, reverse. I wouldn't even mind it if once or twice a game they put him at running back. They give him just pitch him the ball left or right, let him go make a play. He's our most agile and deadliest weapon that we have on the team. So he needs to be touching the ball 4 or 5 times a game. And then, of course, the 3-headed monster at running back and quarterback with the rushing attack. But Weegan, I'd like to see get more touches on offense because he can make some things happen in the open field.
Yeah, he's quick. He single-handedly lost them the Iowa State game, I believe. It was one of the big factors just on a couple of his plays. But then on Saturday against UMass, he single-handedly scored more points than anybody else and was one of the reasons they won 47-7. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, he was already incoming the Big Ten Specialist of the Year, I think the returner of the year. So he was great last year. So you got to get him the ball more often. We don't have any playmakers at receiver and tight end, so he needs 3, 4, 5 touches on offense just to make some things happen. Because otherwise, it's just purely the running game. Which, if I was off, and Iowa does have a good offensive line versus a lot of teams, they'll be able to do some damage there and not be stopped. But it would be nice to have a little bit of a playmaker that the defense has to respect and just can't ignore. Because right now, you could just ignore the Iowa receivers and tight ends because they're not going to make many plays, and if they do, it's going to be a short 5 or 6 yard gain at most, probably. But with Weegan, you could see him popping off some 10, 15, 20 yard plays potentially if you call the right play and he gets the right matchup.
Yeah, I do want to talk about this. I want to challenge some of our listeners. Go to YouTube right now, and I want you to ask a question that is about college football, and we will answer it live here on the air. I do want it to be about college football right now. We're going to get to the NFL in a little bit, and I'll probably do this again, but go to the YouTube and write a comment, write a question there. We'll be able to see it, and we'll answer it live during the podcast here. So those of you that are watching or have watched this or tune in here pretty soon, go to YouTube, Morgan You Asked For podcast, and type in a question, and we will answer it live here on the podcast tonight. Try to get a little bit more YouTube followers here. I guess that's the new thing, is what I've read and stuff. So we're going to try that. Next on the list, Iowa State travels to Jonesboro. Not pretty, but gets the job done. And at the end of the day, that's all they needed to do. There are some worries because some key contributors are injured or continuing to be injured, but they got through the first quarter or a third of the season 4-0 to their bye, and now ramps up conference season. Obviously, they already 1-0 with the Kansas State win, but they did what they needed to do. That was a big thing. It was set up in a very difficult fashion. Jonesboro was not easy to get to. They flew to Memphis, stayed in Memphis, bussed up there for an hour, and then came home. It was 112 degrees on the field. They're tired emotionally, physically, mentally. They've been going hard since the end of July. They needed this break. They got to it undefeated, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, I didn't see any of the game, but I was paying attention a little bit to the score. Noticed it was a close one. Wasn't totally surprised. Again, they're basically a game ahead of a lot of different colleges out there right now. So, as you mentioned, you got to 4-0. You get your bye week. Now, is it Arizona? Is that their next opponent?
Yep.
When they get back. So I think Arizona's undefeated.
Yep.
Still.
Yeah,
okay.
they beat Kansas State in a non-conference conference game. That was one of those that was scheduled before they joined the conference. Kansas State, Arizona last Friday night, but that was a non-conference. So Arizona's undefeated, but they still have not played a conference game, even though it was Kansas State.
Yeah, that's
it's weird.
It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It's I remember hearing that now that I think about it when I was watching some other games. But yeah, that Arizona, I don't know a lot about them. I'm in Tucson right now, which is actually where the University of Arizona is at. So
well, go scout for me. Come on.
Yeah, I should. I don't know much about them this year, but that game will be in Ames, right?
Yep, it's in Ames, 6:00 at night, which made a lot of Iowa people sad because the game's at 6:00 and Eric Church is at it's Casey Center now at 7. So there are a lot of people that had Eric Church tickets that are not super happy that the game's at 6:00. They were hoping for 11:00 kick in the morning, which I think would have benefited Iowa State with Arizona being into town, starting off really early. Speaking of really early, we're not really going to talk too much about it, but Texas Tech and Utah play in a huge game in the Big 12 this Saturday. The Big Noon Kickoff show is there. So they are kicking off essentially at 10 a.m. in Utah for the noon kick on the East Coast, but it's 10 o'clock there in Utah. That doesn't, help either team with Texas being, it's an 11 o'clock kick like normal. But Utah kicking off at 10 a.m., that's a little different. I know they wanted the Big Noon Kickoff there, but you would think Utah would have wanted a little bit later kick than 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, probably an afternoon or night game would have been better for Utah. Get the the fans tailgate a little bit longer.
They don't tailgate like everybody else though, so maybe it doesn't matter.
University of Utah does. Your BYU maybe not as much, but Utah will they'll do a little bit of tailgating compared to their rival down in Provo with BYU. So yeah, for the folks in Iowa, I didn't know Eric Church was in town. You got to pick one or the other with that going on.
Yeah, and that's where I'll be out of town. I'm going to be in Vermont at a wedding, which we talked about earlier. Ryder Cup, the big Ryder Cup, not Oskaloosa Ryder Cup, the big Ryder Cup at Bethpage. There's lots of good football games that weekend. And then I'll be in Vermont looking at leaves at a wedding.
Yeah, you have to take some pictures. I've never been to Vermont, but
not either. Yeah,
so this I know you mentioned it before, but where's the Ryder Cup being played out this year?
Bethpage, there in New York.
No, the Elks one.
At Oski Golf, which
Okay.
it's they put a lot of water on it. We played Saturday morning and it was dry. It was really dry. Then I played Monday night over there, and it was a lot better. They dumped a lot of water on it, doing their best. And then, like I said, it's raining tonight. Chances of rain tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. So it should be as good as it can be. We just not had a lot of rain, and that's no one's fault. That's just life.
Yeah, I'll be excited to get updates from the guys to see who's winning, who's up, who's beating who. Because it's is it tied 2-2 or something or what's the overall record? Do you know, between Iowa City and Oski?
I don't think anybody's won on the road, so the home team has won every time. So I don't know if it's tied or they're up or we're up one, but I don't think anybody's won on the road yet.
So home field advantage is played a part so far in that, huh?
Yep. Which makes sense. Now, last year we went to Williamsburg instead of the Iowa City Elks, but I do think they still won. I actually forget. I don't know. That's the worst part. So it's always fun to do and everything, but I am the worst. I couldn't tell you who I played or if I won or lost. It like skips my. Everybody asked me. Now, last year I do think I went 3-0, but I couldn't tell you who I all played. I couldn't tell you who I played with necessarily. Maybe it was Zach. Heck, I think it might have been Zach. But I know that this year I played with Bennett Spry, the first as partners, and then I think I'm by myself, but I think then I'm with Matt Errett, the second 9 as cartmates. So
you got to talk to Steve Hicks. I know when I was working at the golf course, he kept all the stats every year for the in-town Ryder Cup, the Emerson Oski Golf. So he used to keep all the numbers for that. So maybe he's got that stored away in his file still. You can ask him.
Yeah, he probably does. And Steve's playing this year with us, which is really good, and he's a really good golfer.
Yeah, you guys will need him. So that'll be fun. I'd like to come back one of these years and just grab a cart and watch it. That's always a fun event.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's just great to be, it's all day. We tee off at 9:00, play 9 holes of 9 holes one way, 9 holes a different way with partners, and then 18 holes single. It's an all day thing. And then we're going to go over to Rick Langrebe's in Sigourney, and he's got, he calls it his front porch revival, and has a band and everything, and have a good time Saturday night as well.
Well, good. Yeah. No, hopefully that goes well. Enjoy it. And when you go to Sigourney, there'll be some games on. So hopefully be some good football games you guys can watch or not watch, depending on how the festivities go. So
absolutely. Yep. All right. What was the next on your rundown for college?
Not a whole lot. I mean,
right. Oh, yeah.
Notre Dame probably has the 2 best losses in the country. When you really look at it, their path's going to be tough, though. I mean, at minimum, they have to win out. We know that. And even at 10 or 2, there's no guarantee they're going to get in. It'll depend on how the SEC and the Big 10, ACC, Big 12 would depend what some of those records are. We know the TV networks are going to push for 10-2 Notre Dame to get in just because the ratings they'll bring. But they have 2 quality losses, and the committee did say that playing really good opponents is going to matter. So losing to a good opponent, especially close, is not necessarily going to kill you. Really, so Clemson's looked really bad too, but they do have a path to winning the ACC. Yep. So as long as they make it to the championship game and win, they would get in, even though of all the good teams, they've looked the worst by far to me of any of the contenders that we thought going in. And then, Arch Manning, right now, the throwing motion, the feet, the weird arm angles, it has not gotten better. And right now, I mean, if his last name wasn't Manning on the back of his jersey, I would say he'd be at best a 5th round to an undrafted free agent if he was to come out this year and go in the draft. I think for sure he needs to go back if things don't improve drastically, he needs to go back for his senior year. So Notre Dame, Clemson, Arch Manning, things are not trending in the right direction for any of those schools. In Arch.
It's been a good, it was a good Saturday for the Big 12 conference with Clemson and Notre Dame losing, with already having 2 losses, both of them. So we've had that. We talked that scenario where, the Big 12 championship game is a no-loss team versus a 1-loss team, and the 1-loss team wins. Now you got 2 teams with 1 loss. you might get the nod over Notre Dame or Clemson in this situation, just with less losses. Now, like we said, Clemson has the opportunity to win the conference, so it's not like they can't get in. But Notre Dame does not have that option, so they have to be picked by the committee.
Yeah, what you really need is Notre Dame to lose to anybody on their schedule, USC, whoever it is.
One more.
Yeah, if they get to 3 losses, then they're 100% out. There's no chance. But if they rattle off 10 straight, a lot can change in that amount of time. So if they're 10-2, they're going to be in the mix. Not saying they'll get in necessarily, but there'll be a chance. So yeah, if you're the Big 10 or the Big 12 or the ACC, you definitely want to see Notre Dame get another loss, because then you know that's for sure going to open up one more spot in the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, and I'm a little more invested in Notre Dame this year with Chris Ash being defense coordinator, a Tumble Bulldog, former Iowa State guy, former Rutgers head coach. He's always been really good to me. He was at Iowa State when I was there, and he's from Atumwa, helped me get the job in Atumwa and stuff. So I owe Chris Ash a lot, and he's a D coordinator. First year back at Notre Dame, but after spending a few years in the NFL, but wasn't quite good enough last Saturday for him.
Yeah, that final drive was a rough one. Had him down to 4th down. You thought they might be able to hold him, but it was a great catch by that tight end to come down with that ball. So yeah, it's been a rough start for Notre Dame, but yeah, it's cool that Chris Ash is there, the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. That's about as good as you can do as a defense coordinator. I mean, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia, Texas. I mean, those.
Well, he's been a D coordinator at Ohio State, Texas, and Notre Dame now. So he's obviously one of the, and obviously head coach at Rutgers. So head coach in the Big Ten. He's doing all right for himself.
Yeah, I would say so. So no, that's good. Yeah, but tough for Notre Dame. And again, Arch Manning, I know that second game that he played, there was video of him wincing. Some people were wondering if he was injured, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't see anything in that Ohio State game where he was wincing or looked injured. I just think he's got a weird throwing motion and weird footwork right now, and I don't know if that's going to get corrected in season. That may take a full off season to get those things right, because if you watch him versus some of these crappy teams that they're playing, again, the throwing motion and the feet, it looks weird. And if his last name wasn't Manning, I don't even know if he's a draftable quarterback.
Yeah. Don't you think, I mean, if you're Peyton or Eli, don't you fly down there and, work with him a little bit on your own? If there's really something wrong or something, you just see that it's not going right, don't you fly right down there and help him out? And maybe it's just in his head, or maybe they're staying away a little bit and let Sark try to figure it out. I don't know. I don't know the relationship there. Obviously, they're there to help. They're his uncles, but there's a line there that maybe you don't cross. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure they would go down anytime if he asked for help. And I know, listening to Joel Klatt this week, he just thinks the timing is off, that Arch is rushing some stuff. So who knows? But now that they're going to be playing Florida and Oklahoma, I think, are their next 2 games, which are going to be high profile, and he's got to look better. So otherwise, he needs to come back for a senior season, which may be beneficial for him anyway. I heard something today that I think since 2000, all the quarterbacks that have won a Super Bowl had 30+ starts in college and threw like over 50 touchdowns. So again, you don't want one season of starting like a Trey Lance or an Anthony Richardson. We're starting to see that doesn't really work, even though those guys had all the physical tools. Everybody's looking for the next Josh Allen or whoever, but it is important to have at least 2 full seasons of starting in college, or like a Brock Purdy where you start for even more than that. Some of these other quarterbacks that play 3, even sometimes 4 years. So yeah, for Arch, even if things do trend the right way, I still think he probably comes back for a senior year at this point. We'll see what happens the rest of the season, but right now I think he's definitely got to come back.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. There is a chance, if they go win the national championship, they still do only have 1 loss. I mean, and it's on the road at Ohio State. That's a really good loss. And they didn't look good. It wasn't, it was, not a last second loss or anything, but they still control their destiny. If they win out, they will win the national championship and be just fine. And he's most likely, if that happens, be a big part of it.
Yeah, if they win the national title, he's going to have to be a big part of it. But no, the way he's playing, I don't see that happening for Texas this year. So we'll see how the next couple of games go. I mean, players get better. We saw Ohio State last year. All these teams, you can lose a game or two and still make the playoffs. It's just like the NFL now, where teams are allowed to get better. They're not punished for an early season loss necessarily. You're allowed to maybe get a second loss and still earn your way into the playoffs. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes for him. I'm sure he's going to get better here at some point, whether it's injury, timing. I would think, given his family, Sark, being at Texas, I would think it's going to have to get a little bit better. I'd be surprised if it doesn't improve some.
Yeah, I don't see how it can't, but unless there's an injury. I mean, if there's an injury where he kind of just has to change things because then that changes the whole argument.
Yeah, and maybe it is an injury, but it hasn't looked good. Like I said, if his last name wasn't Manning, he's definitely not a first or second round pick. I mean, I've read some people that say fourth, fifth, sixth round, just because he looks so awkward playing the position right now. So we'll see how the next couple of games go, because they're going to be high profile games.
Yeah, he needs to. I believe this week it's like Sam Houston State.
Sam Houston, and then it's
yep. So he gets one more warm up where hopefully it looks better, and then then I believe you hit it right on the head. It's Florida and Oklahoma, and Oklahoma looks real good. Their quarterback right now is a leading Heisman favorite, and they look much better. And it goes. We talk about this over and over, how fast you can change. Oklahoma looked dead in the water last year. The year before, they weren't good. They beat Alabama, looked really good doing it. Not even close, like 20-3 or whatever it was. And from then on, they looked pretty good. They went out and got a really good quarterback. And now they look to be back. I mean, we're going to find out as the season goes, but they look so much better than they were.
Yeah, they certainly do. And a lot can change in just one season. So John Mateer, he looks the part so far. He's got a little bit of a gunslinger in him. They got a good win over Michigan. Michigan's got a great defense. That was a real quality win for Oklahoma there. So, yeah, Oklahoma looks to be back. USC, we'll see. They've had some troubles, but their quarterback looks to be pretty good, even though they haven't really played anybody yet. We'll see what happens once they start getting really into the heart of the Big Ten schedule. So, yeah, this quarterback class was expected to be really a good one going into the draft next season. Right now, though, a lot of the big names have just not. Arch, Klubnik, Nussmeier is another one that's right up there, but his stats, I guess you could say, are not great. So there's no real number one right now. Maybe Carson Beck emerges. A couple years ago, he was kind of one of those guys that people thought could be a top 10 pick, and he's bouncing back now at Miami. So there's a lot of season left. There's going to be some guys that rise, and there's going to be a couple guys that fall, just like every year.
Yeah. All right, let's transition to the NFL. After 2 weeks in, a lot of 0-2 teams, a lot of 2-0 teams, obviously a lot of 1-1. Just a couple of questions. Give me the best 0-2 team, and then the one that is 0-2 and just has no chance to getting out of it, and they're just the worst team ever for this year, for the worst 2025 team.
Well, the best 0-2 team, I'm no surprise, I'm going to go with Kansas City, because I think they'll get it. I'm pulling up the standings, right? I think they'll get it. They'll get it fixed. As far as the worst teams go, I think you got to look at New Orleans and then Miami. Miami showed a little bit better fight last week. Cleveland's in there too. Tennessee has not looked good. I mean, ask me in a couple more weeks who the worst 0-4 team is probably. The Chiefs are the best 0-2 team. I think they'll bounce back. They have to this week against the Giants, because then they've got Baltimore the following week. So they got to get a win here. And, yeah, there are some bad teams. I think there's 10 2-0 teams, 10 0-2 teams, and then 12 teams that are 1-1, I think is what I heard earlier today. So, yeah, there's some big games coming up this week. We've got the Rams at Philadelphia, which that's going to probably be one of the best games of the weekend. Philly's offense looks broken right now. They're just not clicking. Jalen Hurts is averaging like 126 yards passing a game. I think Saquon Barkley is averaging 3.6 or 3.7 yards a carry. So that can't continue. They're still a good quality team. They're going to be in the playoffs, but they've got a new offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore went to the Saints to take the head coaching job. So their offense doesn't look buttoned up right now. So, next week I'm going to do my power rankings. I'll do my top 10 teams. I'm going to do it every 3 weeks. I don't want to do it every single week. I think that kind of forces you to overreact to games. I think 3 games at a time gives you a little better sample size of, not overreacting. And some teams have played a tougher schedule than others. So every 3 weeks, I'm going to do my top 10 teams and see how they look. But I kind of have an idea right now of, who's really looking good. The Bills and the Ravens look the most explosive, obviously in the AFC. Green Bay, I think, looks the most well-rounded in the NFC. And then, of course, you've got a bunch of other teams, the Eagles, Rams, Bucks, Chargers, kind of in that next group of teams. But we'll do some power rankings after this weekend.
Yeah, I was looking at it before we went on here tonight, and I was looking, I got to pick my survivor team. And just looking at the biggest odds to win, just looking at it, straight math, what Vegas thinks. The Chiefs are one of the 3 or 4 biggest favorites. And do you just go with them, or do you go with the team playing Miami, or do you go with the team playing against Cleveland or playing against Tennessee? Do you pick those worst team, New Orleans? Do you pick the worst team and then just pick who they are playing? That's your dilemma, because as you know, as well as anything, once you pick the team, you can't pick them again. So there's a little strategy to it, but number one factor is you do have to stay alive. And it would have been really, really good. I don't know if you had them at all, but I wish Dallas would have not won that game. We would have had a lot of guys out of that league. And there was one guy, I don't know if you look at the people that went out, but there was one guy that had 4 or 5 picks on Pittsburgh. He went with Pittsburgh 4 or 5 times. I get maybe having them once if you have 4 or 5 entries, but he went 4 or 5 times with the same pick, and he's gone.
Yeah, so for you, you've only got 1 entry, so yours is a little bit different. I got 5. One of my 5 was Dallas. I think I did 2 Baltimore, 1 Buffalo, 1 Dallas, and then one other I can't remember right now. For you don't want to use the Bills probably right now. You'd like to save them, but it's a short week, and they're at home versus Miami. They're a 12.5-point favorite. Right. I think that's the biggest one. Packers on the road at the Browns. Again, that's on the road. Things can get a little bit tricky. The Browns do have really good defense. Bucks hosting the Jets. That's a 7.1. That'll probably be a popular pick as well.
So that's kind of if just looking at it right away, that was one that I was looking at because it's Fields hurt.
Yeah.
So that's just one of the other cogs to this. So.
Yeah, Fields is not going to play, so that's a factor because the Bucks are at home. Obviously, the Saints traveling to Seattle.
Right.
Say a 7.5 dome team going on the road really far. Seattle's defense looks legit, like I kind of expected to. And then the last one, obviously, is the Chiefs on the road at the Giants. I think they're a 6.5-point favorite. So those are going to be the big 4 or 5 games that everybody's going to be picking from. For you, since you only have 1 pick, you got to just stay alive. For me, I've got 5 still alive.
Yeah, so my thing is just stay alive.
Just stay alive. But I can. I'll probably do. Yeah, last week I think I did 2 Ravens, a Bills. I'll probably do something similar this week. I'll probably have a couple Bills. I'll have a Chiefs in there, maybe a Seattle. I'll kind of mix and match, and hopefully I can go 5 for 5. But yeah, I did have 1 Dallas, and a lot of other people did too. So I was watching the end of that game, and that was a crazy ending to that one. And it feels like anymore. A couple things. Feels like kickers are making longer field goals than ever, and they could go when you see these long field goals going, you're like, that'd be good from another 10 yards. I mean, college and NFL, we're seeing guys kick the ball really far. And I don't know if we talked about this yet or not, but college and NFL, the past few years, the first couple of weeks, you and I always got on here, and there was always a couple players in college and NFL that would drop the ball before they crossed the goal line to score. I haven't seen that this year. Have you?
Nope, I haven't either. I think the coaches and the staffs and just the players in general, they know it's like you don't want to become the butt of a joke. The biggest joke in the NFL right now is Caleb Johnson. What happened, Sunday for him. He's now the 3rd string running back and now the 3rd string return guy. When you're a rookie and you're not the dude, you cannot make mistakes like that or you don't see the field. And in the NFL, it's different than others. They'll cut you right now and they don't care. And it might be tough to keep your job in the NFL.
Yeah, that was a terrible look for him. And then he just kind of walked off the field I mean, you gotta keep your head in the game. That was a terrible play. He's been struggling, so we'll see if this is a little bit of a wake up call for Caleb Johnson. Speaking of running backs, I text you about the Chiefs, and I think the Jets and the Saints aren't going to look to move off players yet, probably because they don't want to. The coaches don't want to admit to the players that we're throwing in the towel. But in a couple of weeks, if the Jets or the Saints are 0-4, 0-5, I think the Chiefs need to be looking at Breece Hall and Alvin Kamara, more specifically Breece Hall because he's a younger player. He's on the last year of his contract there with the Jets, I believe. Alvin's a little bit older, but Breece Hall's got some talent, and maybe he just needs a new home. But the Chiefs can't run the ball right now. We know they're going to get Rice and Xavier Worthy back. The tight end situation with Kelsey is what it is, but I think they need to find a younger, explosive running back, and I think Breece Hall would be a really good option for the Chiefs, depending on what the price would be to get him. So
he's a really good pass catcher too, which would be great for Mahomes to outlet or just on those just scramble. The Chiefs' best offense right now is just off script, Mahomes running around and try to make a play, and that's not sustainable for 17 weeks.
No, Mahomes is their leading rusher. I think he's been their leading rusher since the Super Bowl of last season. So they've got to find a running game of some kind, especially with their receiving core being limited. Rasheed will come back, but that's a ways down the road. They've got to find a solution here soon. So I don't know how soon the Jets and the Saints and some of these bad teams are going to be willing to move off players, but I'm sure the Chiefs are going to be sniffing around for a running back.
Yeah, that'd be really good for Iowa State fans and Breece Hall in general. To get somebody there.
Yeah, if you go to Kansas City, you get to play with Mahomes and Reed. It'd be a really good opportunity for him. And
it's home. He's from Wichita, so
yeah, that even better there. So look for the Chiefs to be looking at a running back because their offense is really stagnant right now. The Bears remain the Bears. They got blown out by the Lions. Caleb is. If you look at Caleb's numbers and you didn't watch the games, you'd be thinking he's doing all right.
Yep.
And I would say on the first couple drives of both of the games this season, he has looked all right. But those are scripted plays. They practice those all week. It's when he gets off script, and you could tell Ben Johnson's facial expressions on the sideline. He's not happy with how things are going. He came out, I think, today and said the practice habits have been really poor. Talking about the whole team, not talking about Caleb. So I think one thing to pay attention to or remember is, when Dan Campbell took over Lions, he was under the radar because nobody really was paying attention to the Lions, and they didn't have this number one, they traded for Jared Goff, but they didn't draft Caleb Williams number one overall. He was one of the most hyped prospects coming out of college. So Dan Campbell in Detroit kind of got a fly under the radar the first year and a half before people really started to pay attention to him. Ben Johnson and Caleb, they're under the microscope week one till forever. I mean, it's going to be Chicago's a loud sports city. So everything's magnified with Chicago. But it doesn't look good right now. And their first round pick, Loveland, the tight end, I drafted him in one of my fantasy leagues. I think he's got one catch on the year. He's
got two. And then they're putting side by side to Warren, and he's got 11 catches. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah, and Luther Burden's not really playing. So it's rough right now, but again, you still got 15 more games, so this thing can get turned around. And it did take Dan Campbell a full year and a half to get Detroit figured out, and it may just take Ben Johnson a full season here to figure out who's going to stay and who's not.
Say this is a tryout year for all the players for him, and he's got to figure out if they're his guy or not his guy. I think he's got to figure out if Caleb Johnson is his quarterback or not. And, obviously he gets this year essentially a free pass. Now, you've seen coaches only last a year, but I don't think the Bears are in that mode at all. They're going to give him autonomy to make the decisions and, have his chance to turn the Bears around.
Yeah, he'll get 3 full years unless there's some Urban Meyer scandal type thing going on. He'll get 3 years. So this year, like you said, it's figuring out. It's not just Caleb Williams. It's figuring out who can stay with the team, who's got the right mentality for it. Because again, the penalties are adding up. They can't even break the huddle on time, light up correctly. If you can't do those things, then all the fancy plays and the trick plays and all the fun stuff that comes along, that doesn't even matter if you can't line up correctly and not have self-inflicted wounds. So it might be a rough year for the Bears. It looks like it's going to be, but we'll see what happens with Caleb. I don't know what to make of him. You can see the talent. He can move.
Yep.
He's got a hell of an arm.
And when he makes the right throw, it looks pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But there are too many, he just misses them.
He just misses them. He throws the ball up into some crowded areas sometimes, and then guys that are open, he'll just overthrow them. So it's a work in progress. You can tell Ben Johnson's not happy. It's a little bit different when you're the head coach and not just the offensive coordinator. It was pretty good times there in Detroit. So this is the opposite end, and now he's the head coach, so he's got to deal with everything: offense, defense, special teams. You got the owners to pay attention to, all the media stuff that comes along with being the head coach, players getting in trouble in the middle of the night, stuff that we don't even hear about. Players, their wives go to the hospital, having kids, just phone calls in the middle of the night, random stuff that you don't think about, stuff that Dan Campbell talked about when he first took over as a head coach. You kind of plan out your day and your week, and you never have anywhere close to enough time as you think, because nothing goes according to plan in a full day. So it's rough for the Bears. I just wonder if they're going to be cursed forever with offensive quarterbacks, because that's the way it seems right now.
They did come out and say that they are moving to Arlington Heights, I do think, though. I mean, that at least they I think finally decided that's what they're doing, which is good. That's a good thing in the long term. I mean, it's obviously it stinks that view where they're at in Chicago is awesome. I mean, it really, really is. But the stadium itself and the surrounding area just isn't conducive to 2025 sporting events, and it's just, unfortunately, now, just like what Chicago and Wrigley Field have done, it becomes an entertainment district, and there's no way to do that where they don't own the facility. They don't control the facility at all. It's the Chicago Parks Department. 100 years ago when this was going on, it was fine. But in 2025, the owners want to make money, not just as the Bears, but they want to, have the shops and they want to host an NCAA tournament Final Four. They want to host shows. You want to be like Jerry World and make all the extra money, not just with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I saw that was announced. Also, the Broncos are looking to move their stadium. Washington just announced that they're going to go back to an old site. So, people in Denver are real upset because they're talking about having a retractable roof. Just because you have the retractable roof doesn't mean Denver will use it for all their home games.
Right.
What that says is they can host a Super Bowl.
Yep.
So
honestly, that's what that's kind of an agreement. If you build a new stadium, like even the Vikings had the Super Bowl with the new stadium, even in cold weather, as long as you have a dome, like Chicago, if they, I would assume the same thing. If they build a dome or retractable roof, which I think in Chicago you got to do a retractable, it can't just be a dome. But you will get a Super Bowl. That's kind of the agreement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the NFL will reward you if you have a dome or retractable roof, you're going to get a Super Bowl even in cold weather. The Vikings got it. The Colts got it the year that Tyler Sash went there. Me and some buddies from college drove to Indianapolis, spent Friday and Saturday night there in Indy, and you're right, that's one of the rewards that these NFL teams get when they build new stadiums. If it's a dome, retractable roof, whatever, you're going to host a Super Bowl to bring in some of that extra money that the 2 weeks of the Super Bowl is. So, yeah, Chicago, Denver, and Washington all looking at new sites, new stadiums. We'll see if there's any other teams, but yeah, I did see that was announced today.
Yeah, so I think that's good now. You know how it takes a while, so it's 2025. If it's done by 2030, I'd be surprised, but that's just timing and how long it takes and everything. So, anything else in the NFL? Injuries, several injuries. I have a theory on this. I believe I've said it before on here, but with all the limits on practice time, practice hitting, I believe there's more injuries, or maybe it's just in my head, but I believe there's more injuries now than there's ever been in football, in the NFL football, because no one ever hits anybody except for the games. So when they do get hit, their body doesn't know how to react. Am I wrong in that?
It seems like it. I haven't seen any official numbers to see if injuries are up or down technically, but obviously there's a bunch of quarterbacks out. You might be onto something there. The big one, of course, is Joe Burrow, going to miss at least 3 months. The thing for the Bengals is it's tough now because he's officially an injury-prone quarterback if he wasn't already. And I think there's an out in his contract after 2027, and the Bengals are going to be in a tough spot because if Jake Browning comes in and does well, he had some good moments last year when he stepped in before. I think he's going to be a free agent after the year. If he plays well, somebody's going to pay him a decent amount of money to be their quarterback for a year, to be a bridge quarterback. And the Bengals probably won't be able to match it because they're paying so much to Burrow, Chase, and Higgins that he's probably going to leave. And if you're the Bengals, I mean, not a first-round pick, obviously, but third, fourth round, you start looking at drafting quarterbacks because when Joe Burrow's on, he's as good as anybody in the league. The problem is he only plays, it feels like half the time anymore. So it's a lot of money invested for a guy that's hardly ever on the field. The Bengals do have to start looking at again, not a first-round quarterback or anything, but I think next year's draft, third, fourth, fifth round, you gotta take somebody because Joe Burrow just may be a guy that plays half the time, and that puts everybody in a tough spot. It puts the players, the coaches, and the organization, whether it's a good organization or not. When you have a star like that, but they can only play 50 or 60% of the time, it makes it real difficult for everybody.
And he's fun to watch, and I really liked him on quarterback this year on the show quarterback. But yeah, he's got to be healthy, and you made a great point. They're paying a lot of people a lot of money, and they need to spend some of that on the offensive line to protect him. And you got to make decisions on where to spend your money, and they've spent it on, Chase and Burrow, but they need to spend some more on the line to protect him. And then, as you pointed out, some people are just more injury prone.
They are, and it sounds like Jaden Daniels is going to be a game time decision. He'll, if they need to sit him out, it's an AFC team that they're playing, the Raiders. So if he misses a week, it's not the end of the world. Mariota's capable enough to go out and win a game, especially against a Raiders team that looks to maybe be kind of middle of the pack or lower half of the league. Purdy's still out.
Yep.
J.J. McCarthy's going to miss 2 to 4 weeks, it sounds like. So Carson Wentz is going to be playing Browning, I think, this week in the battle of the backups. So now Carson Wentz is on his sixth team in 6 years. I think he's the first quarterback, the player to do that. So, yeah, you got to have a good backup in this league too. And we talk about all the time, if ideally, if your starter goes out, it's just for a game or two, 2, 3, 4 weeks. Can your backup go 500? In the case of the Bengals, I mean, it's going to be 3 months. So that's a little bit different story, but you got to have a good quality backup.
Let's speak of J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings. He looked bad. I'm just going to be honest. He looked bad, even, whether he's hurt or not. And it has to be a little bit frustrating. Coach, quarterback whisperer, does a really good job, but the quarterbacks he kind of did that with were veterans, guys that have been around the league, just hadn't had that kind of success. Sam Darnold, bounced around a little bit. Kirk Cousins, the Redskins at the time, now the Commanders, just never wanted to commit to him. They kept giving him all kinds of money. And looking back, Kirk Cousins leaving the Vikings, it's just surprising to me that, obviously Atlanta paid him tons of money, so I don't blame him. And, if you're worried about money, then you just go. But now he's got, with Penix Jr. drafted and starting over him, now he's sitting there. Now, honestly, he's getting paid like $25 million a year or $30 million a year as a backup. That's a heck of a gig. But at that stage in your career, stick around and play, and you're still going to get your $20 million a year instead of 30. I don't know what the numbers really were, but looking back, I think the Vikings probably should have paid both those guys. Or at least, do they wish? Now, Darnold with the Seahawks still have a chance, but the Falcons, Kirk Cousins isn't going to play. Darnold at least went there to be the starter. Now, Cousins went there to be the starter, but before he even played a down, they had already drafted someone in the top 10. So they were moving on from him right away.
Well, Cousins had the injury. I think moving off him, they were just ready. The time had come. He's an older player. What I think the Vikings would like to have back at this point is they probably still wish Daniel Jones had stayed, or they'd offered him a little bit more money, because Daniel Jones, through 2 weeks, he's in the MVP conversation. I don't expect him to stay there. We'll see.
Right.
I need to see 2, 4, or 5 more games out of Daniel Jones and the Colts to see what they actually are, because we do see every year there's a couple teams that come out hot and they fade, a couple teams that start slow and then they get rolling. So, but I think the Vikings would sure like to have Daniel Jones back, 1 year, $14 million. If you asked them right now, they would sure like to have him in the building still. So, yeah, with J.J. McCarthy, there was a lot of reports out of camp weren't good. He's injury prone already through the first 2 seasons. And we've seen teams, depending what happens, if he plays 10 to 12 games this year, whatever it ends up being total, and he doesn't look good, and they're picking top 15, we have seen teams move off quarterbacks quicker. Yep. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals moved off Josh Rosen after 1 year. Now they had the number 1 overall pick, and right. Kyler Murray was there. That was the right pick, even though Kyler's kind of a weird quarterback and a weird guy. He was definitely the right selection there, because Rosen was out of the league in, I think, a year and a half after that, after they made that decision. So McCarthy's under some pressure because the Vikings have a really good roster. This is the coach that wants to win now. And if he looks terrible the remainder of the year, it's going to be interesting where they're picking in the draft and who's available with the quarterbacks. Do they take a guy in the first round? Do they give him 1 more year? Do they maybe take a guy in the 3rd or 4th to put a little pressure on him? But I at the end of the day, I do think the Vikings wish they had Daniel Jones in the building for 1 year, $14-15 million. Sure would look pretty good right now for him.
Yeah, it'd let JJ sit for a year actually practicing, or even start JJ, but knowing you've got a guy here that can be who. So now they're going with Carson Wentz, right? And neither guy. So he's a guy that's proven it as well, but he hasn't proven it in a long time.
Well, if Carson Wentz goes out and plays really well, let's just call it 4 weeks, and they go 3-1 or 4-0 somehow, and he puts up good numbers, they may just keep him as a starter if the coach thinks that that's the way to go. So, and that'll be pretty damning on J.J. McCarthy too. If you look at Cousins, Darnold, and then Carson Wentz all having success there, and he's struggling so much, that's not going to be a good look for him. So it's unfortunate he got injured, but yeah, it's quarterbacks going down is the worst, because backup quarterbacks a lot of times those games aren't fun to watch. So we need that's why we need Arch Manning to be good, and some of these other quarterbacks. The more good quarterbacks that there are in the NFL, the games are more fun to watch.
I can't remember which game I was watching, but I think it was Tampa Bay, and Tampa going down and scoring right at the end of the game. And they were so efficient, kicked the field goal with no time left. They still had 2 timeouts left. That's how efficient they were on offense. That's the difference in like college and the NFL, is just how efficient they can be in no huddle, everybody knowing what to do, don't even have to really call things. It's just they practice it over and over and over. It's their livelihood. Now, it is in college football now too. It's different. And I think going forward, you should see that a little bit more, because they shouldn't be worrying about other things, but they are younger and they still have limits on practice time. Kind of. I mean, there's rules now. You can say what you want about those, but I was just super impressed. And Baker Mayfield is really good. He needed to be jumping up and down. He got out of Cleveland as soon as he did. He was there long enough. He paid his dues and got out and got to a great spot. And I believe we talked about it a few weeks ago that Tampa's got one of the best records in the last 5 years in the NFC. And they look to be, I don't think they're a Super Bowl necessary contender, but they're going to be in the playoffs, and, they can win a game, and then you never know.
I think they're a contender to make the NFC Championship game, as well as Baker's playing. Jason Light, their GM's the most underrated GM in the NFL. They hit it out of the ballpark when it comes to drafting every year. So Tampa's a real deal. Baker's found his home there. It's been a great fit. It's been great for both sides, and he revitalized his career, and that's the Browns. I mean, when you look back on it, he won a playoff game for him for the first time in however many years, taking down Pittsburgh in the playoffs of all teams, and then went on the road and gave Kansas City all they wanted in that game. And then not long after that, they get rid of him. He injured his shoulder. Odell Beckham's dad came out and made that video, or, it was kind of tarnishing him. And things just got weird. And of course, Cleveland does what Cleveland does. They say, okay, we'll see you later, and we'll bring in Deshaun Watson. And look where the Browns are now, and look where Baker and Tampa's at. So it's good for him. He's a fan favorite. He's fun to watch. And
I like watching him play.
Before the season got started, I said he was a good little dark horse bet at 25-1 for MVP. So he's definitely in the mix too, because he's had two game winning drives the first 2 weeks of the season, and he's probably going to continue to put up really good numbers this year with all the receivers that they've got, the talent on that team, and given how weak the division is. I mean, it looks to be them and maybe the Falcons, and then the Saints and the Panthers. They look to be some of the worst teams in the league. So Tampa, if they keep going, they could contend for the number 1 seed just because of their division.
Right.
And if that happens, Baker's going to have a chance to win the MVP, I think, because his numbers should be tops of the league when it comes to quarterbacks.
Speaking of Carolina, I saw a meme or whatever that the first trade in NFL history where neither team wish it would have happened, the Bears and Carolina, because it didn't help anybody.
It doesn't seem like it. There was a lot of folks that were high on the Panthers coming into the season thinking they were going to be a dark horse. I wasn't one of them. I didn't like them taking a receiver in the top 10. You know me, it's either quarterback or O-line or D-line for top 10 picks typically is kind of my theory. So, Bryce Young's days look to be limited, potentially his last season there. So the Panthers, they've been bad for a while under Tepper, their owner. Doesn't look like it's getting any better. But, that trade between the Bears and Panthers, it's looking like a no-win for both teams right now.
Absolutely. All right. We're just over an hour here. Perfect timing. A little after 10 o'clock here in Iowa. We'll be back next week.
One last thing real quick. The Monday night game, Lions at the Ravens.
Okay.
Ravens are favored by 5. I think the Ravens are going to win, but something to pay attention to in that game, if Detroit pulls the upset, all of a sudden the Ravens would be 1-2, and then they'd be going on the road to Kansas City in week 4, and they'd be staring at 1-3 because Kansas City is in win now mode. They've got to win versus the Giants, and then they really need to win versus Baltimore to get to that 2-2. So that's a sneaky important game for Baltimore Monday night.
Yeah, and we talked about the Packers put it on Detroit, and they didn't look very good, and then Detroit looked really good against the Bears. Now we both think the Bears aren't very good, but against a not very good team, they did what you're supposed to do. So maybe the Detroit, maybe we weren't as far off as we thought we were when we both had them going a long ways in the playoffs. And after week 1, we both, you kind of said, well, maybe we might both be wrong. But yeah, if Detroit would go beat Baltimore, and then that puts Baltimore, be 2 of the 3 best teams in the AFC with 2 losses already, assuming the Chiefs beat the Jets, with Baltimore and Kansas City already having 2 losses in the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, if Detroit can beat Baltimore, then they've got Cleveland and Cincinnati coming up. They're following 2 games. So the schedule, then they've got Kansas City and Tampa, which gets tough. But it would be a big win for Detroit if they can get it. And it'd be a massive loss, actually, if the Ravens end up losing at home. They're favored by 5. I think they're going to win. They played a couple years ago in Baltimore. Baltimore ran them out of the stadium. I think Lamar's like 26-1 versus NFC teams.
Yeah.
Just because NFC teams don't know what to do. They don't see him that often. Right. And Lamar's a different type of player. So I expect the Ravens to win. But pay attention, though, if they somehow throw that game away, which the Ravens have been known to do the past few years, all of a sudden they're kind of in a must-win mode going into Kansas City. So a sneaky important game for Baltimore Monday night.
Yeah, that's a good point there, Trev. And kind of wrapping it up here. You're Trevor. I'm Ryan. Thanks everybody for watching, listening. Subscribe, rate, review, like whatever you do on whatever podcast player or YouTube that you like. We do appreciate it, and we'll be back next week. No Iowa State game. We'll kind of have the recap of the Iowa game and talk about the future, good or bad, after the Rutgers game on Friday night.
Yep, sounds good. And enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you next week.
All right. See you later, Trev.